So one of my followers asked me to review his chief gear and charms and his hero gear. And so that's what I'm going to do in this video. And the first thing I want to say is how you upgrade your chief gear, charms, and hero gear will depend a lot on what kind of player you want to be. If you only like to play bear and do intel missions, then the way you upgrade your gear is going to be different than if you want to be a well-rounded player that is effective in things like Foundry, Castle, and Bear. And those are two very different players. So I'm going to talk about how to upgrade the gear to be a well-rounded player. So the first thing I would say is regarding the chief gear, you always want your chief gear for your infantry, which is the pants and the jacket, to be the highest level. Your infantry is your armor, and so you want it to have high health and be a powerhouse. And so looking here, you can see that it's T1 purple, so it is less than the staff for the marksman. So the first thing I would do is when he goes next to upgrade the chief gear, is I would bring the pants and the jacket up to T1 2 stars gold. T1 gold 2 stars. That's the first thing that I would do. I would get it as strong as I can before I upgraded anything else. Then I would bring up the hat and the compass for the lancers to T1. Probably T1. T1 purple would probably be okay, but I would probably go T1 purple 2 or 3 stars. And then I would bring up the marksman ring to T1 gold. And so we would have the infantry jacket and pants at T1 gold 2 stars, the marksman gear at T1 gold, no stars, and the lancer gear at T1 purple 2 or 3 stars. And then moving forward, I would upgrade in that order moving forward. Now, lancers should be sturdier than marksmen. So a lot of people prefer that you go infantry, lancers, marksmen when you're talking about chief gear. So another option would be for you to upgrade your lancers to T1 gold 1 star, and then your marksmen to T1 gold. And then, so you have your infantry at T1 gold 2 stars, your lancers at T1 gold 1 star, and your marksmen at T1 gold no stars. And then you would upgrade them in the future, and you would go infantry, infantry, lancer, lancer, marksman, marksman. Lancers are great. I just don't prioritize lancers as much as some other people. I used to. It was effective when I was weaker. I just put a higher priority on infantry and marksman now. So it's your choice, but that's what I would do with infantry. You have 2 paths. You can decide which path you want to take. For your charms, I would say that I do like that you are focusing more heavily on marksman charms than you are the other 2. And I would say that can continue, but you don't want your marksman charms to get too far ahead of your lancer charms, and you do want to still bring up your infantry charms as well. And I would have it be even. Your left sides should match your right side. And again, this is just to make you well-rounded player. So the first thing I would do is I would even out your marksman charms. I would get them both to where they look identical. So if you have 4, 5, 5, then I would, on one side, then I would make sure the other side is 4, 5, 5 also. And Then I would go to your lancers and I would bring them up to where they're right below your marksmen. So if your marksmen are at 455, maybe your lancers are at 344, or maybe your lancers are at 444. And then I would have my infantry and bring them up so they're right below your lancers. So you have your marksmen at 455, your lancers at 344, and then maybe you have your infantry at 333. And then moving forward, I would upgrade them in that order. Marksman, marksman, lancer, lancer, infantry, infantry. Marksman, marksman, lancer, lancer, infantry, infantry. So they all stay within 2 or 3 levels of each other. You can get a little further below with the infantry because its focus is not lethality, but you don't want it to get too far below where you are with your marksmen in order to be a well-rounded player, because especially when you're doing defense, you will have 60-40 infantry, 60% infantry, 40% lancers, and so they need to be able to kill. You want them to have that skill and that ability. It's just not a priority. Next, we're going to talk about hero gear, and the first thing I would say here is that he has diversified too much. Unless he is a whale, he does not need to have hero gear on every hero. And I'm going to put a caveat to that. If you have extra gold gear, like when you're saving up for SVS, you might have gold gear that you have nowhere to store it, so you store it on your heroes, and that's fine. What I'm talking about is some of these heroes, so he has Mia has gear and Molly has gear, and they have both been upgraded and enhanced and forged. And you don't need 2 lancers with enhanced and forged gear. You only need 1 set of gear per type of troop, unless you're a whale. If you're a whale, you can afford to do it. I don't think this guy is a whale. I could be wrong. Maybe he is, but I don't think he is. So as a free-to-play, low-spend, or a mid-spend player, I would say for him to go in and reforge all of the gear on anybody but his 3 main heroes. So his 3 main heroes should have gear. Everybody else, their gear should be zeroed back down, reforged back down to 0 for enhancement XP and essence stones. Now, when he goes and reforges it with the essence stones, he will lose half of the essence stones he used to forge it the first time. But he'll get those half back, and then he can apply those half to those 3 main heroes. Yeah, you think, in Foundry I might send out multiple marches, but you want to have 1 super strong march. And then for the rest of it, like everybody has 1 super strong march, and then the rest of their heroes aren't as strong. And honestly, you just can't, it is so expensive to keep hero gear on all of your heroes and maximize it all. You are better to focus on the top 3 so that you have 1 squad that is super strong, and then the rest of your squads are strong enough, right? So that's what I would do. And then the other thing I will say, so with lancers and marksmen, you want to focus on goggles and boots. And with infantry, you want to focus on belts and gloves. And I will say that it does look like he's doing that. So you can see that, like, for instance, Flint's belt and gloves are at 100 level 2, and 1 is at level 4. But Flint's goggles are only at 90, and they're at level 2. So it does look like he is prioritizing the right ones. I just think when he reforges those other pieces of gear, like Molly's gear, when he reforges that, he should really push those essence stones into the main pieces of equipment for those heroes. So Molly's goggles and Molly's boots, Alonzo's goggles, Alonzo's boots, and really push them up. You know, it's okay if the main pieces of hero gear for your main squad is 10 levels below the other pieces, right? It's okay to do that. Now, you don't want to have one max piece all the way to, you know, legendary and max, then the other piece at, you know, 20 XP and level 1 essence stones. Like, you don't want that, but there can be a gap here, a bigger gap than with chief gear and charms. The other thing is he's going to find that as he moves to empower this gear, and then in the higher levels of essence stones, when you're doing mastery forging, it's going to require a lot of gold gear. So by zeroing out Molly and Sergei and Patrick's gear and Gina's gear, he is going to find that he'll be able to mastery forge and empower those pieces, because he'll have extra gold gear. And it takes a lot. To do level 20 mastery forgery, I think it's 200 essence stones and 10 pieces of gold gear, if I remember correctly. So it takes a lot of gold gear. That doesn't sound like much, but 19 takes 10 pieces also, and 8 takes like 5 pieces, and you know, so it can be expensive. One thing I'm noticing here right now is he's got Amos. So I think he's got to be in Gen 4. So I would like for him to push Amos and have Amos take over as his main infantryman instead of Flint. And Alonzo is good. Alonzo is good for Bear. But if he's in Gen 4, I wonder if he's got Lynn. I don't have his hero gear or his heroes, individual heroes, so I don't know. You know what? He might have sent me a picture of Lynn. Oh, he's in Gen 5. He's got a Gen 5 piece of hero gear. So this is his backpack. And so he's in Gen 5. So for Gen 5, you want to, don't touch Amos. Don't listen to what I said a few minutes ago. Get Hector. You want Hector. And I really like Gwen more than I like Lynn. They do have slightly different roles. Some people prefer Lynn. I prefer Gwen. I would say get Hector's widget to level 8 with at least 4 stars and max skills. And then keep Hector until Gen 8 when we get Gatot. I don't know how to say his name. Gatot, I don't know. Gatot. He comes out in Gen 8 and he will replace Hector. So if you're already in Gen 5, get Hector, get his widget to at least a 5, preferably 6, 7, maybe an 8 if you are a mid to high spender. I also see you have a lot of Gen 3 chests. So if her widget is not max her widget ASAP. That should be the first thing you do after you stop watching this video, is go max her widget or get it as close to maxed as you can with your 56 hero gear chests. And then the next thing I would do is get Raina. And she's Gen 4. She is a good all-around Lancer. Now, she will not replace Mia for Bear, so you will have to swap out their gear. She will not replace Mia necessarily for rallies, like if you're rallying the castle or things of that nature, although she can. But she is a good all-around one. She's really good for Foundry. She's strong. She's good for Arena. She's good if you're doing solo attacks on turrets and castles. You can also use her for rallies. Her widget, again, is similar to Mia's, but she's not as effective as Mia because Mia has other skills that makes her more effective for Bear. So Reyna's not good for Bear, but she is good for attacking other people. So you have a lot of widget chests for Gen 4. So I would say go in and get Reyna. She's a good option. Hector is a good all-around defense infantryman. Almost as good, but he's good for defense, and so I would not recommend you get him unless you're a whale and you can afford Hector and him, because Almost is good for defense. He's good for garrisoning buildings, but he is not as good as Hector is for attack. So I would spend all of those widgets on getting Reyna and maxing her widget. And then you can throw a couple of them, if you have some left over, to Lyn and Amos. And you don't necessarily have to max Lyn's widget, but we're not going to replace Reyna as a attack hero or attack Lancer until Gen 8 when we get Sonya. So Mia will use past Gen 10 for Bear. Reyna will get Sonya in Gen 8. And then you're using Alonso. I would replace Alonso with Lyn or Gwen. My personal favorite is Gwen. And I would get her widget to at least a 5, preferably a 6 or a 7, because her widget gives you a rally boost, which will increase your Bear score. But we will be replacing Gwen in Gen 7 with Bradley. So that's a marksman. The marksman hero. Gwen is good until Gen 7 when we get Bradley. And then we will replace Gwen in our Bear and use, starting in Gen 7, we'll use Mia, Bradley. I use Geronimo, but not everybody has Geronimo. So you would use Bradley, Mia, and Hector for Bear through Gen 7. So that's my recommendations for your hero gear just based on this. I see you have a lot of mystery badges. I recommend you hoard those as much as you can once you have gotten your gear, your Gen 5 Hector and Gwen chests. I would hoard the mystery badges so that you are able to use them for Bradley in Gen 7. I would skip Gen 6 completely if you do what I said. You won't need anybody from Gen 6 if you get Hector, Reyna, and Gwen. And so you can skip Gen 6 completely. So I would keep all of your mystery badges so that you can max Bradley's widget as soon as possible. And I would also not spin the wheel unless you need SVS points. So Bradley will be a wheel hero. And in Gen 6, it's Renee, and you don't need Renee. And so I wouldn't spend any of those wheel coins on Renee. I would save them and use them on Bradley. The exception is if you need SVS points and you have to spin the wheel because you're free to play player. But I would still say, like, Better to not have great SVS points and get Bradley max as quickly as you can. This next thing is just a picture of his speed ups, and I don't know if he's hoarding or if he is just really good at saving for SVS. If this is what you're saving for SVS, like, that's impressive, and do you want to join my alliance? Because that's pretty good. I wonder when your SVS was. Did you just not have SVS last week? He just sent this to me this week, so maybe they don't have I'm trying to remember what state he's from. But anyway, yes, save that for SVS. And then if you don't need the points, I would save, if you're free to play or low spend player, I would use what you can during SVS, but then I would save some for next SVS if your state is winning prep. If your state is winning SVS prep, I would not use all of that. I would save some of it for next time. That it helps ensure that you win SVS prep next time. But if you're free to play, it also helps ensure that you're able to get your base points next time. If you are a mid spender, then I would burn it all upgrading stuff during SVS. And you would be able to do a lot with that. The only other thing I would say is never use general speed ups on troop training. That's like a mistake that a lot of people make early on. I did it. And if you are going to do it early on, I would say only do it on marksmen so that you get a lot of marksmen for bear, because bear, getting essence stones at bear will help you build up all of your hero gear faster. But don't use the general speed ups on troop training. Instead, use them on research. So you could do 148 days of research, which will get you like pretty far. I don't know where you are in your research tree, but that combined with your 86 days of research, it's real easy as a newer player to overlook research and not prioritize that. And it will make a really big difference to you in the long run if you prioritize that early on and use all your general speed ups to complete research. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, or if I didn't cover something you were hoping I would, let me know.